So I am here to talk about collaboration, basically in starting a pipeline, K through graduate level. So in terms of lessons learned, what we have done in Maryland, and some other states have started to replicate pieces of it, and thought that I would be able to share a little bit with you, and you can figure out what might stick or what might work in your particular area. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I serve as the Executive Director and a Senior Researcher for EdTech Policy Research and Outreach, also a co-PI for the National Cyberwatch Center, and Director of the K-12 Division, and then I serve as President for the Maryland Society for Educational Technology. So, and I mention that because when we start to talk about kind of the range and the scope of items that we have in place in Maryland, one of the pieces is the different domains that you tap into, how you can really, you know, not just in your higher ed institutions, but reaching down into your different, the different levels even within your K-12. And I think that becomes a critical part. So the new mission, see, Casey was supposed to be here so he could see that I put the new mission for the National Center, and that little rat, he bailed out on us. But the mission of the National Cyberwatch Center is to advance cybersecurity education by leading collaborative efforts to strengthen the national cybersecurity workforce. And within that, we have a K-12 division. So we support the various partners with K-12 initiatives, and that under that particular domain, we're looking at leveraging the network and collaboration capacity through our National Cyberwatch Center, promoting access to shared high-quality resources, and we'll be tapping into the NICE portal as well, fostering collaboration between other STEM disciplines, and I'll tell you the sort of the importance of that. Even with the presentation before, they were talking about gender equity issues, and he was mentioning sort of the internal recruitment. And the internal recruitment is actually one of the best ways to recruit for female across all STEM disciplines. So it's important that you kind of reach out of your own domain of computer science, engineering, technology into what research has already been done in those other areas and kind of make use to it. And I see that Donna is actually on the agenda for tomorrow, and she is at the very end of it, but she does a phenomenal job with the women's gender issues, and she's her National Science Foundation funded center, I think, is here in California, and provide research-based solutions. So with that, the K-12 division within Cyberwatch, we have kind of 4 domains: programs, where we do professional development. We have after-school programs. We'll go through that in just a second. Workforce awareness, so that is making sure that the educators, the students, the parents, the school counselors, our 2- and 4-year institutions, they pretty much know about it, but understanding what plethora of job opportunities are under that umbrella of cybersecurity. Then we have our C3 awareness, cyberethics, safety, and security, and how that ties into it, and supporting our K-12 IT systems, which sometimes get left out, and we'll talk about that. But with that in mind, collaboration. So how many, first of all, are from the San Francisco area here? Just one? Okay. The reason I mention that is because I know this particular group in the Bay Area, they have done some of the preliminary gap analysis, which is one of the first steps that you'll need to kind of move on with this. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that piece. How many are 2-year institutions, all of you? 2-year institutions? What about yourself? 4. 4, okay, so 4. All right, good. Okay, so what I thought that I would do is I would walk you through the steps that we took in Maryland to kind of get the breadth that we have within our state. And along the way, hopefully you'll pick up on the method to our madness in terms of the steps that we did, whether they be steps or whether they be in parallel tracks, and you can see if any of that applies to you. So one of the first things that we did is working the two-year institutions sort of collaboratively work together to figure out what exactly is the program of study that we want to engage in, and how can we collaboratively come to agreement in terms of what the classes are and what is being taught in those classes, so that then we can basically co-brand it. So the different institutions, the two-year institutions, they might have a Security Plus 101 at one institution, and at another institution within the state it's still Security Plus, but it's maybe labeled 283. But it's co-branded. In our case, it's co-branded as a Cyberwatch course with a common number. And that way, because we do know within our state, and that is actually a national sort of statistic, the kids move around. And I shouldn't say kids because they're older ones too, but they bop back and forth. So you have to be have to have a mechanism in place where you can do transfer, and it's an easy type of, you read what's on the transcript and apply. So, and I was talking to someone today and they said, oh, that would be impossible. That's not an easy task. Getting any higher ed institution to sort of play in the sandbox nicely is difficult, but it's doable. So that's one of the first things that was put in place. And then with that came the four-year institutions. So the partnering four-year institutions worked with the four-year to say, okay, what have you put into place that would transfer into our four-year? So what Com was talking about earlier, their kind of transfer mechanism as well. Doesn't happen with all the institutions within Maryland, but at least with many of our Cyberwatch partner institutions, so that those students who are going through the two-year can then enter into the four-year, depending on which of the four-year programs it enter into. Some of them enter in as a junior, some of them enter in with a certificate with just taking a couple more courses, but at least they're further along in the pipeline. And that again is with articulation agreements that are made between the two and the four-year institutions. Okay, coming sort of with the idea of what's the real reason, why are we doing this? It's not so much for making money for our own institution, although in the back of the mind I'm sure they're doing that too, but what can we do to better the really end product, which is trying to get these students to go into the workforce. So those we have into place. And then from that, we backtracked, and now we worked with the Maryland State Department of Education. So within your state, you could work with your Department of Education. They all have a CTE track, a Career Technology Education track. And within that, we now have a cybersecurity program of study. So the kids basically take two Cisco courses, Cisco 1 and 2, then Security Plus and Operating System. And Ethics has basically, instead of being a standalone course, is now being integrated in just like it is in our two-year institutions. Those 4 courses are the same courses that our two-year institutions, exact same curriculum. In some particular cases, it's the faculty from the two-year institution that's actually delivering the content. In one particular case in Baltimore, the kids actually walk across the road to the two-year institution to take the course. So there's all different mechanisms that it can be done. And those then work with standard dual enrollment or articulation agreements between your high school or your school districts with your two-year institutions in terms of credit. Okay. I will also say with all of these, I think it's important to make use of what you already have in place instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. Because in an earlier presentation it was, if you try to start something from the ground, from the beginning, and then go through the process for approval, it takes a much longer time than if you have something already in place that then you can just tweak it a little bit. So for example, for our high school CTE track, that was a Cisco Academy track. And all we did was adjust it to make it a different program of study. Even though it was Maryland State Department of Ed that was agreeing to it to begin with, but it made a small, it took us less time to kind of put it in place than starting from ground. Other things with the high school, if you're interested in that particular case, is just in one county, and I can only mention this one county on the top of my head because I was just at a meeting, so I know the numbers. When the kids were in the Cisco Academy, those numbers have been dropping. They had 8 students in the Cisco Academy. We changed the title to Cybersecurity. We now have 28 this year by changing the title. Along with, this was a big one that we really pushed for, and that is for weighted credit. So in other words, you have to convince the parents to allow the kids to take it. And if you have the option between your child taking an AP course or, a Cisco course, which is just regular credit, they're going to go for that AP course because of the weighted credit. So you have to have it weighted even if it's just honors. So that makes a big difference. It makes a big psychological difference in the eyes of parents and students, but it also makes, the bottom line is they want to be on that class ranking, and the only way to do class ranking now is through taking as many weighted credits as you can. And the school systems are pretty open to that because the weighted credit is all based on Bloom's taxonomy, and of course all of these courses are very high level. Team collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, it's all of that. You could check it off, so it's very easy to get the weighted credit. And even with a lot of the folks I talked with here from the 2-year institutions where they already have an IT program, but they want to make like a cybersecurity track or a certification. That's a lot easier to make those adjustments than to just start something, brand new from the ground up. So just keeping that all in place with this particular case.
The question is, did you have CTE instructors in the school that when you didn't have the option of going to college, did you have, the instructors that are amenable to learning this stuff?
We did have some. So some of them are already teaching Oracle. They're teaching Oracle Academy, the ASTIA Academy, Cisco Academy, Networking Academy. So you already have those CTE track teachers. The other ones, what we're doing is, and we'll get to that, is that we're doing the professional development for those teachers so that we can do the critical math. Yeah. So you have to kind of, have that piece in it as well.
How is the high school enrollment in the Cisco Academy? Is it still equally same? That hasn't gone down at all?
Well, it increased because they went into the cybersecurity. It went from 8 to 28. So there's the ones, and what's happening is that those kids are also now looking, they want the cybersecurity piece, but then they're going back to the community college to get those other 2 Cisco courses so that they can do the CCNA as well. Okay, and with our high school, all of them are going for the certification. So, they're taking the Security Plus so they can do the Security Plus certification and the A Plus and whatnot. And I mentioned the direction that we went, which was our 2-year institutions first, and then our 4-year institutions articulation, and then back mapping to our high school. And that is very, very important because I see more and more folks saying, oh, we get, the way to do this is we're going to get the high school kids in there. So you have all this effort into high school, and then you have a bottleneck because you don't have anywhere to put them in that way. Because you don't have, you might have one two-year institution that has it, but you don't have all the others. Or once those kids go to the 2-year, then where they go to the 4-year. So you have to have a vision in place so that students, educators, parents, they know that there's something productive. You know, my return on investment is going to be good. So this worked out well for us. So the other thing that we do have in place, although it works at the state level, so just like the federal level, it works like molasses. Sorry about that. They have a working group. So they have a working group that's trying to, Dr. C, what are they trying to do? They're trying to do the same thing as engineering. What is that? They're trying to all agree that it would be across, whether you were at a 4-year institution or it was a standard by the state. Here's where, you have some 4-year institutions and 2-year institutions that are already doing it, so they're fine with it. But then you have other institutions that are research, Carnegie One institutions who just don't see, and it will happen someday. It will. Okay. Another thing that we're doing here with the high school, so this is in blue indicating that we're still working on it, and we're doing mapping. Our Cyberwatch, National Cyberwatch Center does have a task force working on the 2-year institution curriculum mapping to the NICE. What we're talking about here mapping is with the high school. One group is working with trying to kind of back map it to the NICE, but what we're doing is each institution, each 2-year institution, 4-year institution in the high school, trying to map out, okay, how can I take these courses, whether it be the Computer Science Academy or the Oracle Academy or the Networking Academy or the Cybersecurity track. Once I exit that, what partner 2-year institution would I go into? And what 4-year institution could that lead into? So we're trying to do that particular piece, which is really very interesting, because just trying to get a handle on all the different options within just our 2-year partners. But that is very important because school counselors need to know, parents need to know, kids need to know. They need to know what opportunities, when I go and look on the college catalog, what exactly am I entering into? What program do I need to even look up? I even get confused when I go into some of the 2-year institutions that I work with to try to figure out what department they're in and where exactly the cybersecurity piece, what certificates are available, and the cross, a certification. And if you have 2 more classes in criminal justice, you can also get digital forensics. So we're trying to map all of that out to the best that we can. Now we did have a little bit of an advantage in that Maryland already had its standards with cybersecurity actually embedded in. So all of your states have K-12 standards for their regular English, their core standards. They now have the new Common Core standards that are coming out for math and literacy, and then the new ones are the new science standards that are rolling out. Then they have the literacy standards. They also have their soft technology standards that almost everyone has to have, like a half credit or a full credit in most of your states. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. No? You have a gen ed? Yeah. Do you have one in your state? Like your standard technology credit that the kids have to have. Just like they have to have an art credit and a PE, like half a year credit. Don't they have a tech standard that they have to meet? Okay. Yeah, because all the states have their own technology standards, or they have adopted the ISTE, the ISTE set of standards. But within that, they have the option to interpret those differently to meet the mandate that all kids are literate by 8th grade by 2014. So they adjusted those standards and the goals and objectives, and in that included, in our case in Maryland, they included the cybersecurity piece within those skill sets for the three grade bands. So that was very nice. So I wanted to place that up there. At the same time that we were working in kind of this formal, making sure that there was a pipeline, we also started in parallel working with after-school programs. Now we worked in that direction because if you've tried to push anything into K-12, adding a new class to an already packed curriculum is really, really tough. And it's really impossible. So in the after-school programs, we have MindTools that runs year-round for elementary, and we have our CyberStem that runs year-round for middle school. And and for high school, what we do is support some of the after-school clubs. So robotics clubs, we have a couple of cryptology clubs. The new thing is the cyber defense competition clubs, and we support them by help if they need a mentor, if they need a speaker. We try to make those kind of connections, if you will. So the after-school clubs have worked out fairly well, and not only the ones that we fund through Cyberwatch through NSF funding, but now they've started to kind of grow on their own, where the schools actually pay for the teachers to run the programs and those type of things. So elementary, middle, and high. Then we also have our cyber camps, our summer, what we call cyber STEM camps. So those are for your general student who it's not like the cyber defense competition camps. These are for the where we're trying to get kids into the pipeline. With all of these, the content is basically on 6 kind of domains that we cover content, and that is computational logic or programming in a variety of different flavors. We usually do a sequence of microworlds. From microworlds, we program in Excel. From Excel, we program into Scratch. From Scratch, then we, depending on the age group and whatnot, we move on to Google SketchUp, Alice, Java, Python, depending on the level and what's going on. And somebody asked me earlier if you can just, the Scratch is kind of everybody's familiar with Scratch? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's kind of idiot-proof. And that's good, but it's also bad that if you get the kids doing Scratch, you're never get them to go back and do syntax programming. It's really tough to pull them back. So we always introduce them to the syntax first and then move on to the drag and drop, the object-based, and then it's a little bit easier to keep them going with robotics and things. But we do computational logic, digital forensics, cryptology, system vulnerabilities, ethics, safety and security, and project management. So those are kind of the flavors that we're able to do, and with that, the girls gravitate to the forensics and the cryptology. Not the robotics, not the programming so much, except they like to draw things and program things to hop and things like that, but then they move off, but they really get into the forensics and the cryptology.
How do you consider processing from MIT?
Processing.
Well, you can check it later. It's a visual tool. It's a way of programming through visual programming.
Okay. There's so many out there. They have Squeak. That was hot for a while and then it went down. They had star logo and net logo, which actually those are pretty good because those go over with mapping. But anyway, this is kind of the sequence that we work that has worked for us, so we've kept it going. Because of that, and don't sit there counting because there's no rhyme or reason to the number of little bubbles that I did there. But a lot of them have sort of branched off from that. So now we have, we have our 2-year institutions now actually hosting some of these summer camps. And so they get the content from us, and we help them, prepare, and we help with some of the pedagogy in terms of, oh, we want to do a, I know you guys would never do this, but we've had 2-year institutions say, oh, we want to do this summer camp, and we're going to do it for elementary kids, and we're going to go from 7 to 5. And it's like, no, that doesn't work for that age group. And so just silly, things like that are very, very important to sort of to realize. And now our 4-year institutions, and our 4-year institutions are able to kind of also draw on their faculty to do some. So Towson last year did one, and they had app development and gaming theory, so they kind of threw in their little flavor to it as well. We also had the cyber defense competition. So the first one that we ran was with Karen Evans' group as the kids who did the Cyber Quest. The cream of the crop was then invited to come to, it was not an overnight stay, it was a commuter camp, but they did the cyber defense. We held one at Community College, and that was for the cream of the crop. We held another cyber defense competition at University, cyber defense boot camp at University of Maryland that was a little less selective in its choosing, and that was a little bit more difficult because you were really teaching high-level activities with a group that probably really wasn't ready for it. This year, the Cyber Defense Boot Camp will be at College Park, but it will be a residential program. So I think that will work out a little bit nicer. And again, we'll go for the kids that have done well in the Cyber Quest that are in our region is what we'll target. Content I already talked to you about. In addition, and I should mention with some of these after-school programs and summer camps, if you can't kind of come up with your own, then the other option is to go with items that are already in place. So for example, MESA is a group that does a lot of after-school activities. There's a gazillion out there, and you just tag team with them and saying if you're doing a STEM initiative, there's like a gazillion STEM initiatives going on right now. Could you include part of this piece on cybersecurity? We've also worked with FBLA. Folks don't understand, FBLA is a huge organization. Folks didn't realize they have a whole cybersecurity competition that they've had for the last billions of years. So we've worked with those kids trying to prep them and get them going. Skills USA is another one that you can partner with. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, they have now the badges in cybersecurity. So you can kind of tag team with that instead of trying to recreate your own if you're limited on funding. In the Mid-Atlantic, you have the Mid-Atlantic CCDC. And along with that, what we did is we added to that the high school career fair and expo. So the competition is on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And this is college teams. But on the Saturday, on the last event, we have a career fair where all the different 2- and 4-year institutions come and try to convince the kids to come to their program. We have breakout sessions, different speakers and so forth, and it's a nice way to get the parents and the the kids actually seeing the competition in place, but then learning a little bit more about it. And again, that's something that we just added on to an activity that was already existing. We've also, we have a Cool Careers in Cybersecurity for Girls workshop. This is, I don't know how many, 7 or 8 years, but we've had more several in 1 year. But the large one that we have this past year, we had it at College Park, and we had 370 middle school girls. I can tell you that's too many. don't do that many. Our event, and I was showing some of the folks here, because all these resources are online, you can kind of access them. Each year we have a digital crime scenario, and we have a little animated video, 3-minute video that talks about the scenario. The girls all watch that, and then they break up into groups of 10, and that's because the girls they'll talk in small groups. They won't talk in a large auditorium. So we break them up into small groups with women from the profession. So the greatest group is, we had quite a few from Lockheed Martin. They sent their whole big group from Columbia there, but also the women's in engineering, IT, are wonderful to tap into and are very excited to come and talk with the girls. We try to work with the ladies to find out what their background is, and then we develop lesson plans that basically connect their job role with the digital crime. The girls rotate around for 20 minutes. The first 10 minutes they work trying to solve a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the crime, and the other 10 minutes are interacting with the female at the table, whether it be pen testing or the FBI or the getting things off of a laptop or a broken disk or whatnot, or putting a computer back together. They just interact with them, asking questions and kind of figuring out how they got into the field, that type of thing. They do 4 rotations, and then we bring them back and they have time to interact while they're doing lunch, trying to figure out who done it. We have a speaker, and then we send them home. We've done it on the weekends before, but we found that the girls that are able to come on Saturdays, when we've had it on the weekend, they basically have the social capital to get them there, and those aren't necessarily the girls that we're after. We're trying to target a population that might not have access to it. So we work with the school systems to pay for the buses, or the PTA pays for the buses to bring the girls to the location. So we basically have between 10 and they got to be back on the bus at 1:30. So it's a very short, very quick. And now University of Maryland wants to pick this up as part of their center activity as well. But that's something, everybody's on the bandwagon to try to get girls into technology and the cybersecurity. So maybe around your area, a women's group you could partner with to do something like that. We also have an annual C3 conference that was ongoing before, but it works on, this is our 11th year, it's on cyberethics, safety, and security. What was kind of neat this year is partnering with MSD, our Maryland State Department of Ed. The first day was on safety and our security aspects. What are the problems with bringing laptops, bring your own laptop to school, to the ethical issues, talking about background in terms of ethics of plagiarism and so forth. The second day was on safety pieces, particularly cyberbullying. So partnering with our State Department of Ed, they have a statewide cyberbullying and anti-harassment conference. So we merged those two and got a great synergy between the population that we serve, which is teachers, media specialists, and administrators, faculty, and their group, which is basically psychologists, the school, that staff. and nursing, health fields that we're able to share and mingle. We also have a working with, again, partnerships. So working with the State Department of Ed, we have a school counselors, careers in cybersecurity for school counselors and STEM coordinators workshop. It's a one-day workshop that brings the school counselors into one location to talk about cybersecurity, what it is, what are the different flavors of it, what are the different programs, how can kids, you know, what can they do in high school to just end up with a certificate, what can they do with just just this much education, what could they do with a 2-year degree education, what could they do with 4-year, talking to large and small businesses. Peggy, you were there 1 year sharing with information, so it's just a great way to talk with a group that really you need to interact with the students, and partnering with your State Department of Ed, that works out well. For us in Maryland, we're a very small state. For other groups like California, where you might have several different regions that you might have to work with, but it's a great another area to tap. Then tapping in or making contact with your state technology educator group. So every state has an affiliate with the national ICT organization. Ours is the Maryland Society for Educational Technology. It's more of the instructional technology, but all of that has moved over with STEM. Since all the federal funding has been pulled for technology integration in schools, that group of people has to figure out, you know, how to get money, so they've all shifted over into STEM. So if you can partner with them, and they're all looking for ways to partner. So if you can partner with them, there's some wonderful opportunities. So with MSDE, we have our, it's not iMaryland it's now iLearn Maryland, which is the Apple University online. So all the content gets plugged into that, where the teachers are using that with their laptops and their iPhones. And we have an administrator toolkit on cybersecurity, and that is open. You could go to the website and get the information. They have a teacher's toolkit that was designed, again, for just the general cybersecurity, more of the security awareness piece, but for all the teachers, and they take that for CEU credits. They have professional development now on these particular topics, on everything from wireless to high level, all the way down to just kind of the elementary awareness piece. And then at their conference, they actually have a strand, and we'll probably be doing some of the professional, presentations at those conferences too. So that's, you know, that's a group that hits about 5,000 teachers within our state that are somehow connected with technology. And so I would highly recommend that you kind of reach out to that organization within your state as well to see what you could do. What we're working now with through Cyberwatch, the National Cyberwatch Center, is we've had our 2-year institutions that have taken some of their coursework and put it online. And so now what we've done is we're taking that, our first course is the Security Plus course that the teachers could answer your question, you know, how do you get your high school teachers up to par? So they're already in networking, Cisco, this type of thing, but they haven't quite, they don't have the backing, some of them don't, in the Security Plus. So we're using the online hybrid mechanism for both the teacher, for the professional development, and for them to actually use with their students. And then working with the Maryland State Department of Ed, we have through their Race to the Top funding, one of the courses that they wanted developed was a general cybersecurity course for the general student. And this is from everything from awareness up to kind of the first couple of chapters, if you will, of like the Security Plus. Those first, the little triangle, that type of thing. So we're working with them with that. MSDE also developed some content over the last couple of years in partnership with us to develop some modules that they've embedded into the classroom. So working with your State Department of Ed or your local, I think, is very important if you are hoping to, one, make an entrance into the K-12, and two, start to build. If you see here from all of this, we're starting to build kind of a lots of little people understanding sort of the reasoning behind cybersecurity and where the careers are, and to kind of build that, bubbling up that need for it. They also now are converting those modules, those lesson plans, if you will, for the common classroom. So, what topics can you use in math? What are all the different possibilities of passwords with 2 versus 4, combinations, uppercase, lowercase? How can you take something like that and embed it into a classroom? Talking about predators and prey and biology, and then talking about Trojans and that type of thing. So they're building in so that it matches the Common Core. And last, we're almost getting there, so is the CTE Professional Development Academy. So we're really trying to kind of ramp up. Now we've got this high school CTE track in place, and we have some 2-year faculty, but even our 2-year faculty need more faculty to teach these courses. And now we have every one of the 24 school districts that we have in Maryland wanting to have at least one. In some of the larger districts, they want more of these, the cybersecurity track. So we've got to get them ramped up pretty quickly. So we have an academy where we're really trying to get them up to par, as well as a Cyber STEM Academy. And then we're working on 2 of our databases, and one is the program directory and the content directory, and those are sort of crowd-based. So similar to if you've ever seen the Girls Collaborative Project, where another NSF-funded project, but it's a database where people can enter in information about all the different programs and all the different content. There's we have to filter. We don't want to have Viagra things in the database, but it's a way of trying to collect on a national level some of the pieces that are going on, and then this, of course, will feed into or link to the NICE initiative as well. The one with your portal, they're not able to put it directly. It has to go through several steps, right? So that's what we're trying to kind of, and also with the content directory, their actual curriculum, there's rubrics, and then there's 2 slides, 2 sections, if you will. One is research-based, and so it's a pretty rigorous type of content that is cybersecurity related, and then content that has the potential but hasn't gone through that rigor yet. And that gets into basically making judgments, and I know that's a little more difficult so if they can link with us, it will be easy. And then there are about a zillion competitions. So right now, there's like so many defense competitions, and I know Casey would just kill me if I said this, but I mean, the teachers are just sick of competition. There's just so many of them that what's happening is they're all getting spread too far. There's only, X number of kids, and they all want to go into different ones, and all of them have to pay, and there's only like one person or one coach that can coach them, and it's just getting saturated. And it's not just the cyber defense competitions, it's the forensics competitions. It's every time you turn around, there's another STEM. There's the Google STEM. There's the, there's the Facebook STEM now, something going on. There's the there's robotics, and kids. There's only so much that you can do, and with all of these competitions, it's really a lot of time outside of class that you have to put into a lot of these competitions. So there's about a zillion of these, and somebody asked me, what are those zillion? So we do have a list of them that we try to keep up with, but that list just keeps growing and growing and growing. And there's that meets a need, but I think at some point you do get kind of saturated, and you have to figure out which direction you want to kind of go into. And the science fairs and all of that comes under that as well. So some of the takeaways here. One, I would say if you're really trying to, one of the folks want to kind of build a pipeline, and so they drill down and they say, well, we're going to have a summer camp. Well, we're going to have a cool careers in cybersecurity. Well, what exactly is the impact that you make with just that one intervention is very, very limited. I mean, there's tons of research out there that will show you the impact that you just have on one intervention. It has to be kind of thought out, and there has to be a place for the kids to kind of move along. So the only way you can do that, you can't do that all by yourself. So the only way you can do that is by strengthening, the capacity that's already in place. Kind of build upon what your strengths are, and then start partnering with other people so that you can kind of connect all the dots. Ensure that there's no bottlenecks. That's where I think starting in K-12 is great. We have to start, but if you're not also starting at the other end at the same time, you're going to start cranking all these kids out and then not having anything, and you're going to lose them. So you have to make sure that both ends are either working in parallel, or I would say work on the 2- and 4-year institutions first, and then start on your high school. In the meantime, maybe you could work on the elementary and middle. Once you've done a gap analysis, then create some of the programs that might be missing. You had several that I shared, but you might also have others. Utilize the faculty, and that means both ways. So one of the, just like our K-12 faculty might not have the expertise to be teaching whatever it is that we want to be, networking, forensics, whatever the case. The same holds true, I think, with 2- and 4-year institutions that sometimes do not realize this. And that is, they say, well, I teach, XYZ, and I'm going to start teaching, we're going to have a program for elementary, middle, and high, and whatever grade level that is, not really coordinated with the K-12. And this is a whole different ball game. You try to sit down with your students that you get from your high school into your program, and you might, in the back, you might have kind of a storyline about what you have to deal with. You try to take that and offer a program to middle schoolers and wondering why they're all wiggling and squirming around and whatnot. So you have to use it back and forth, and I would really say that the 2- and 4-year institutions sometimes have a thought that they know it all, and I think that the K-12 can really, I'm not trying to be me, because I sit on that 4-year side too. There's a lot that can be shared by both sides, so utilize it. I think that's very, very important. Research best practice, and that means looking at things that are already done. Computer science and engineering have been doing things in gender equity and STEM for decades and decades and decades. And there's research out out the wazoo in terms of what works, what doesn't work in pipeline, why girls don't go into computer science, why they drop out. You know, there's a lot of research out there in terms of the CTE tracks and the benefit from that, and the statistics in terms of those kids, the articulation, or you know, the kids staying rather than dropping out. There's big research agenda right now coming out of Harvard group about you know, the importance of kind of the 2-year track option, not just everybody plugging into the cookie cutter 4-year. So there's all sorts of things that you can use to your advantage in just your marketing that would be very wise to look at. Establishing a holistic approach. That means, you know, your school counselors. You haven't even talked about the parents. Anything you do that you give to at least kids in the K-12, it's very important to have a parent component. We always have things that go home. Sometimes they might not make it home, but at least we make an effort for kids to go home and talk to their parents about. This is what we learned. And you sit around the table or dinner table and try to, you know, do your name in binary. Or, you know, we have little jokes or syntax jokes that the kids can kind of talk, and then when their parents ask, why are you learning that? They say, well, you know, this is how a computer talks. Just different things to engage the whole family in, as well as your schools, your educators, the whole thing. Inspire innovation between multiple stakeholders, and I think a real big one is just kind of transitioning from the me to the us. So in other words, instead of just everything coming out of my institution, what can I partner with to kind of progress forward? And so with that, that's what we call our secure framework, is by using these strategies to try to come up with a holistic approach. And I'll just leave it with that. What questions could I?
Is there a website for all this?
There is. So shall I attempt to go back to that website?
Can you type it in or tell us?
Yes. So you can go to you can go to the cyberwatchcenter.org, and then on the left is the K-12 link, and that should bring you to, where was that? That was the first slide, wasn't it? That will bring you to here. And that just goes to the different...
Tech policy?
Yes. So that goes, but the best, if you want, it's easier just to remember cyberwatchcenter.org, and then you click on the K-12. Okay? And that goes through, you know, a lot of the different activities that we have that you could make use of. What things do you already have going in your state?
Me, I teach at a community college, so I wouldn't know what some kids do.
That's not good! And see, this is what you need to know. You need to know where your kids are going to, where they're coming from, how you can connect and pull those kids in. That's an important piece.
Well, you know, we come from Hawaii, and we have little islands, and the problem is, let's say we have a specialization in robotics, which includes STEM and robotics. We have a hesitancy to learn new things, especially these key CTE instructors in certain schools are influential in what CTE programs should be taught. So we're having difficulty in introducing new lines like you did, for example. And it might have helped that Maryland already had a standard in cybersecurity, so that might have helped people but different states still.
That's only on the Gen Ed. That really doesn't apply to CTE, but I know that your state has a CTE track as well.
Yes, we do.
So you should see what's already in place.
Right.
And then how can you
I love that.
find it over?
Cisco could be expanded, as you said, with 2 other courses.
Why isn't it moving? Oh.
I just mentioned it's a bunch of high school teachers.
Uh-huh.
Because we have a career pathway kind of thing.
Yeah.
Try to have the, have the high school kids, coming to 2 years and then 4 years and so on. My big problem is that managers is so poor. Because they're all this social promotion, way from elementary, middle school, and that's, I think that's the major problem.
The math?
The level is way too low. Academics.
So the only thing I can say is at least the Common Core for the math is trying to make an adjustment for that. That's the good news. The bad news is it usually takes 5 to 6 years for you to really see any results. And so we're going to have to wait for that to kind of kick in. But some of these tracks you don't really need a super high level. Now there's different ways to attack it. One is by doing sort of prep camps ahead of time, trying to get those kids, remediation up to par. The other thing is to try to tap some of those students that are bright.
Right, which is what we end up doing. This is a good slide for us. Now the first and second year would be like 2 years in high school, right?
Right.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. We have parts of this. But the fact that 30 plus and is a goal, that's good. I mean, you barely get 30 plus. Even those numbers are declining.
Well, like I said, just making that switch, the two big things that we did was make the switch the name, cybersecurity track, and weighted credit, and we went from 8 to 28. Just those two because of the parental I think switch over. So different things, like different strategies like that can really kind of make a difference.
It has to be done with DOE level, right?
That's why my students, I was just talking to the K to 12. I mean, teachers. The other thing is actually for the CPE track, they're losing students.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the weighted credit is what makes them extra.
Exactly.
What you have to do is know how to market it. So one is making it weighted credit so that they are, so that you're not competing with the AP class or the other classes and so forth. And in the parent's mindset, it's a higher level class. It's not VOTEC.
Right. But it has to be
and then the other piece is to really look at that research that's coming out, and it's phenomenal. One, if you want a job nowadays, it's not the education you go into. It's it's the education and what area. And we know that the STEM is sort of that equal opportunity employer.